राधे राधे दोस्तों, स्वागत है एक और बुक रीडिंग सेशन में। लास्ट हमने जो चैप्टर पढ़ा था उसका नाम था फिश, जो कि था द्रौपदी यानी पांचाली के जो स्वयंवर से रिलेटेड था। बुक पढ़ रहे हैं हम, द बुक ऑफ इल्यूजन, और आज है चैप्टर 8 की बारी। आई नो थोड़ा सा कंटिन्यूटी में प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है, बट कभी कभी लाइफ में कुछ ऐसी चीजें हो जाती हैं जिन पे आपका कंट्रोल नहीं होता और आपको कुछ चीजें स्किप करनी पड़ती हैं। बट एनीवेज, आई होप आप लोगों को मजा आ रहा होगा। बुक रीडिंग के अंदर 7 चैप्टर हमने पढ़ लिए हैं। बड़ी ही इंटरेस्टिंग तरीके से जो है महाभारत की कहानी जो बताई जा रही है, पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू जो है वो पांचाली का है। आज का जो चैप्टर है उसका नाम है सॉसरस। चलो चल के पढ़ें और देखें क्यों है इस चैप्टर का नाम सॉसरस। One morning, the sorceress arrived. But why do I call her that? She looked no different from the women who sold their wares in marketplace. With the pleat of her blue sari tucked peasant fashion between her legs, a faint smell of salted fish wafted from her. Who are you? Daima demanded. How did you get past the guards? She had a star tattooed onto her chin and muscled arms with which she moved Daima no urgently out of her way. Daima started at her mouth, gaped at the women's effrontery. I expected her to shout for the sanitary or berate the women with her unusual belligerence, but she did neither. I have been sent, the sorceress said to me, to fill some of the bigger gaps in your largely useless education. I didn't protest. Secretly, I agreed with her estimations of my lessons. I was interested in seeing what she had to offer. Who sent you? I asked. I had a suspicion that it was Vyasa the sage. He too came from fisher folk. She grinned. Her teeth were very white in her dark face, their edges sharp and serrated. Your first lesson, princess, is to know how to sidestep questions you don't want to answer. You do it by ignoring them. The rest of that week, she taught me how to dress hair. She taught me how to wash it, oil it, comb the tangle out of it, and braid it into 100 different designs. She had me practice on her and rebuked me sharply if I pulled too hard or snagged her trees. Her hair was kinky and unruly, difficult to handle, so I received many such admonishments. I took them with unaccustomed meekness. Daima puffed out her cheeks in disapproval. Ridiculous, she said emphatically, though not I noticed in the sorceress hearing. Whoever heard of a queen braiding someone's hair, or even her own for the matter? But I felt the sorceress had her reasons, and I worked hard until she declared herself satisfied. तो यहाँ पे एक sorceress आई है, fish की स्मेल आ रही थी उससे, और पांचाली को लग रहा है कि ये जो है इसको व्यासा ने भेजा, और वो उनकी एजुकेशन के अंदर जो गैप है उनके अकॉर्डिंग, सॉसरस के अकॉर्डिंग, वो पूरा करने आई है। और कहीं ना कहीं पांचाली भी एग्री करगी, क्योंकि वो भी मानती है कि उनकी एजुकेशन के अंदर बहुत बड़ा गैप है। The sorceress taught me other unqueenly skills. She made me lie on the floor at night with only my arm for a pillow, and until I could sleep under those conditions, she made me wear the cheapest, most abrasive cotton sari that chafed my skin until I grew used to them. She made me eat what the lowest of my servants ate. She taught me to live on fruits, then water, and then to fast for days at time. That's women's going to be the death of you. That women's going to be the death of you. दाइमा बोल रहे हैं कि ये तुम्हें मार के छोड़ेगी. She is wearing you down to skin and bone. But this was not true. The sorceress had taught me a yogic breath that filled me with energy so that I needed no substance. The breath made my point one pointed and began to glimpse subtitles that had been invisible to me before. I noticed that her lessons went in opposite. She taught me adornments to enhance my beauty. She taught me how to make myself so ordinary that no one would spare me a second. तो यहाँ पे जो है सॉसरस ने उनको एक बिल्कुल जो है आसान जिंदगी, एक बिल्कुल कॉमन जिंदगी जीना सिखाया, भूखे रहना सिखाया, फास्ट करना सिखाया, और फ्रूट्स के ऊपर रहना सिखाया, और एक ऐसी ब्रीदिंग टेक्निक सिखाई जिनसे ये सब करने के बाद भी शी वॉज ऑलवेज फुल ऑफ एनर्जी. Spared me a second glance. She taught me to cook with the best of ingredients and the most meager. She taught me potions to cure illness and potions to cause them. She taught me to be unafraid of speaking out and to be brave enough for silence. She taught me when to lie and when to speak the truth. She taught me to discover a man's hidden tragedies by reading the tremor in his voice. She taught me to close myself off from the sorrow of others so that I might survive. I understood that she was preparing me for the different situations that would appear in my life. I tried to guess what shape they might take, but Here I failed also in this. Though I knew all that she taught me was important, in my vanity I only learned the ones that flattered my ego. तो यहाँ पे वो बोल रहे हैं कि उन्होंने उनको पता था पांचाली को किसी सिचुएशन के लिए मुझे तैयार किया जा रहा है, पर मैंने वही सीखा जो मेरी ईगो को सेटिस्फाई कर रहा था, मैंने सब कुछ नहीं सीखा. Towards the end, she taught me seduction, the first role a wife must play. She demonstrated how to send out a lightning glance from the corner of the eye, how to bite slightly the swollen lower lip, how to make bangles ring as I raised my arm to pull a transparent veil into palace, how to walk the back swaying just enough to hint a hidden pleasure. She said, in bed you must be different each day, sensitive to your lord's moods. Sometimes a lioness, sometimes a trembling dove, sometimes a doe, matching its partner's fleetness. She gave me herbs, some for instability, some for endurance, some for the days I might want to keep a man away. What about love? I asked. The stalk of the blue lotus ground into honey will make a man mad for you. The stalk of the blue lotus grounded into honey will make a man mad for you, she said. That's not what I meant. She gave me the name of a herb to arouse my own desire. No, teach me how to love my husband, how to make him love me. She laughed out loud. I can't teach you that, she said. Love comes like lightning, disappear the same way. If you are lucky, it strikes you right. If not, you'll spend your life yearning for a man you can't have. I advise you to forget about love, princess. Pleasure is simple and duty more important. Learn to be satisfied with them. I should have believed her and modified my expectations, but I didn't. Deep in my stubborn heart, I was convinced I deserve more. तो यहाँ पे उनको हर तरीके की जो है एजुकेशन जो है उस सॉसरस ने दी, चाहे वो लव से रिलेटेड हो, चाहे वो प्लेजर से रिलेटेड हो, चाहे वो सिडक्शन से रिलेटेड हो, चाहे वो खाने से रिलेटेड हो. तो हर तरीके से हर पहलू जिंदगी का उन्हें जो है सिखाया. और जब उन्होंने प्यार के बारे में पूछा, उसके बारे में एक बहुत अच्छा ज्ञान दिया कि ये तो भैया तुम्हारा अपना ही है, इसमें मैं तुम्हारी कोई मदद नहीं कर सकती. There were two final gifts the sorceress gave me, a story and a parchment. The story was the tale of Kunti, mother of Arjun. The parchment was a map of Bharat's many kingdoms. In her youth, the sorceress told me Kunti was given a boon by the irascible sage Durvasa, whom she's managed somehow to please. Whenever she wanted, she could call upon a god and he would gift her with a son. It was a strange boon, not without its drawbacks, but it came in handy when her husband Pandu couldn't provide her with children. Thus, her eldest Yudhishthir was the son of god of rightness, her second Bhim the son of god of wind, Arjun the son of Indra the king god. Once King Pandu's other wife Madri begged and begged Kunti to loan her this boon, and Kunti did. Thus, Nakul and Sahadev, sons of twin healer gods, were born. Do you believe that man can be born from gods? I asked. She gave me a look. As much as they can be born from fire, but my believing is not important, not yours. That's not why stories are given to you. तो यहाँ पे जो है पांचाली पूछती है क्या भगवान से इंसान पैदा हो सकता है, तो उनको जवाब मिलता है अगर अग्नि से पैदा हो सकता है तो भगवान से तो हो सकता है, बाकी स्टोरीज हैं, मानना ना मानना तुम्हारी खुद की चॉइस है. The sorceress was a good storyteller. She brought Kunti's lonely existence alive so I could look into it lightless cervix. Adopted by her uncle, the childless king Kunti Bhoj, she had no brothers to cherish her, no sisters to confide in, and no mother to turn to for counseling. Her marriage to Pandu, one of political convenience, wasn't happy. Almost immediately, he took the beautiful Madri as his second wife and lavished his affection on her. Soon afterwards, Pandu was cursed by a Brahmin. He left his kingdom into the hands of his blind brother uh, Dhritarashtra and went to the forest to do penance. As faithful wives, Kunti and Madri too left the comforts of the court and accompanied him. Though perhaps they shouldn't have bothered, the curse stipulated that if Pandu touched a woman in desire, he would perish. Years passed, the children appeared, but one day Pandu, no longer able to resist, embraced Madri. He died. The guilt-ridden Madri chose not to live on. Kunti, devastated though she must have been both by her husband's death and his last act, gathered all her willpower. She brought the five princes back to Hastinapur, making no distinction between her own children and those of her rivals. She was determined that no one would cheat them out of their inheritance. For years, she struggled, a widow alone and in disfavor, to keep them safe in um, धृतराष्ट्र's कोर्ट until finally now they were grown. तो यहाँ पे पूरी कहानी बता दी कि कैसे कुंती जो है एक सिंगल औरत जिसका ना कोई भाई था, ना बहन था, ना दोस्त था, उसको एक पॉलिटिकल अलायंस के चलते पांडु से शादी करा दी गई। पांडु जिसने इमीडिएटली दूसरी शादी कर ली मदरी से, और उनके बाद उनको एक शराब मिला और उस शराब के चलते उनकी मौत हो गई। और कैसे फिर कुंती जो अपने पांचों पुत्रों को लेके वापस हस्तिनापुर आ गए और वहां पे उनके हक की लड़ाई लड़ती रही। I wanted to tell the sorceress how moved I was by Kunti's sufferings and her courage, but she forestalled me. Don't let the waves of your emotion drown you, she said, fixing me with eyes they were cold as agats. Understand what drove a woman like her, what allowed her to survive when she was surrounded by enemies. Understand what makes a queen. And beware, I didn't pay the sorceress much attention. With the ignorance of youth, I thought that the motive that drove Kunti were too simple to require careful study. Only when we met, I would realize how different she was from my imagination and how much more dangerous. The map was a thick, crinkled sheet, the color of skin. Before this, though the tutor had spoken of it, I had never seen the shape of the country I lived in. A triangle that narrowed downwards in a wedge that drove itself into the ocean. It was made up of so many kingdoms that I thought I'd never learn them all. The rivers and mountains were easier. I enunciated their names as I traced them with my finger. When I touched the peak of the Himalayas, my hand tingled, and I knew that those icy range would be significant in my life. I looked wonderingly at the kingdom of Panchal and the dot that was Campelia. It was a strange feeling to locate myself for the first time in the world. I had this map made just before I came, the sorceress said, but it's already outdated. She passed her hand over the parchment, and it seemed that the boundaries of kingdoms shifted. Some growing larger, some shrinking, a few disappeared altogether, while others changed names. The kings are always fighting, she said. All they want is more land and more power. They tax the common people to starvation and force them to fight in their armies. Surely there must be some good kings, I argued, who care for their subjects. I was thinking of Krishna, though I knew little of how he governed his land. Too few, she said, and they are tired with fighting. In the third age of man, the good are mostly weak. That is why the earth needs the great war so she can start over. ओके तो यहाँ पे बताया जा रहा है कि ज्यादातर किंगडम जो है लड़ते जा रहे हैं, राजा लालची हो गए हैं, इसीलिए जो है अर्थ को एक ग्रेट वॉर चाहिए ताकि सब कुछ शुरू से शुरू किया जा सके. There it was again, the great war, the words like nails scraping my lungs. Hesitantly I asked. I was told I'll be the cause of the war. She looked at me. I thought I saw pity in her eyes, but she merely said, there are many causes for such gigantic events. I persisted. I was told that 1 million women would be widowed because of me. It rings my heart to think that I'll cause so much suffering to those who are innocent. It's always been that way. When did the innocent not suffer? In any case, you are wrong in thinking of a woman as an innocent species. She waved her hand again and the map flickered. It seemed to me that I was looking into 100 homes, humble and kingly both. I heard the voices and thoughts of women, bitter and bickering. Some wished death and disease on their rivals, others wanted control of their household. Some berated children with words that left scars on their hearts. Some beat servant girls or forced them out penniless into the jaws of ravenous world. Still others whispered their discontent into their sleeping husband's ear all night, so that the men waking in the morning act out the anger that festered within their wives. As you see, the sorcerer said, women contribute to the world's problem in 100 insidious ways, and you, who will be more powerful than most, could wreak great havoc if you aren't careful. I have taught you some better alternatives, if only you can keep them in mind and not get swept away by the passion. I can, I said, with the confidence of untested. I knew I was intelligent. Wasn't Daima always complaining about how overly smart I was? I knew enough to control passion. I visualized myself as a great queen dispensing wisdom and love. Panchali, the peacemaker, people would call me. The sorceress laughed. That's the last memory I have of her. Bent over and clutching her sides until tears ran from her eyes. तो वो पेट पकड़ के जोर जोर से हंसने लग गई कि तुम और समझदार और तुम और सही डिसीजन लोगे और तुम और पेस मेकर तो तुम चाहो भैया शांति नहीं लाने वाली हो। जहां पे तुम्हें सोचना चाहिए, जहां पे तुम्हें चुप रहना चाहिए, जहां पे तुम्हें नहीं हंसना चाहिए, वो तुमसे कुछ भी नहीं होने वाला है और तुम ही कारण बनने वाली हो ग्रेट वॉर का। तो बड़ा ही इंटरेस्टिंग चैप्टर था सॉर्सरस। कल पढ़ेंगे अगला चैप्टर। कैसा लग रहा है आपको ये बुक रीडिंग सेशन? कमेंट सेक्शन में जरूर बता देना और लाइक शेयर सब्सक्राइब तो कर ही देना। जब आप लाइक करोगे तो साथ में एक हाइप की ऑप्शन आती है, हाइप जरूर कर देना, रिक्वेस्ट है मेरी।